You're listening to Rock Solid People, a podcast by Max King.
The harder the conflict, the more glorious the triumph.
And welcome to Rock Solid People, a podcast where I, Max King, the CEO of Care Support, interview interesting and amazing individuals in the disability space. And today I'm very pleased to have with me Dr. Guy Turnbull. And Guy, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, how you doing, Max?
Thank you very much. Yeah, good. I wanted to try and read your biography from the Don Dunstan Foundation, but it's too long and you've got too many accolades. So I'm going to start with that you've been involved in the cooperative and social enterprise sector for nearly 25 years. It's since 1988. And you're a serial entrepreneur, former managing director of Care and Share Associates, which we'll talk about later, current managing director of Healthy Social Care, which is based out of Adelaide, and have previously and also been very involved in setting up Rapid Enterprise Development workshops. I've got so much to talk to you about. I'm so pleased that we've got you on the podcast. Thank you so much for agreeing to talk. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and how you got involved in the cooperative and social enterprise space?
Well, I've started off as an academic. My PhD is in geography, and actually got lost along the way. So the story essentially is I was researching the impact of youth employment policy in the UK,
right,
and the youth training scheme as it was then, and why it worked in middle class areas and why it didn't work in working class areas. And that's what my PhD is on. And I ended up going undercover into a hard-to-let housing estate in the north of England.
Right.
And my cover, and you can do this now for research ethics, but back in the Wild West of the 80s, anything went. And my cover was helping set up a housing cooperative.
Right.
So a co-op owned by people who rented the housing to try and resolve some of the housing issues there. There was 90% unemployment and it was a really run-down area. And I just got absolutely blown away by the co-op sector. Right. The idea that you could run a business in an ethical manner that was owned and controlled by the workers.
Yep.
So I gave up my academic career, managed to blag a job in a local authority, setting up co-ops, which I did for 3 or 4 years, and then set up my first cooperative business doing consultancy in 95.
Right.
And actually the first co-op I ever set up was a goat smoking co-op, nothing to do with disability at all. So it was 4 farms that came together to own a smokery and a farm shop.
Wow. Okay. So I did not expect a few of those things. I did not expect a PhD in geography.
And so from that, and so we were doing quite reactive business development for a number of years. We were a co-op of 5 consultants. And I suddenly realised, why isn't there a big co-op in the care sector? Because we know engaged employees deliver the best possible care.
Yep.
So why not share ownership with the workforce? And why not, instead of us just reacting to inquiries for legal advice or business planning or fundraising, why don't we find a small care co-op and scale it up? And by that time, I was friends with somebody called Margaret Elliott, who operated a care cooperative in Sunderland, and we essentially took that model and replicated it into CASA. That's the background.
And for those of us who don't know the basics and the principles of this sort of housing co-op, can you give us a a short description of sort of how it works and what the principles are and what's its aim? What's its goal?
Well, the aim of any co-op is a cooperative is a venture, an autonomous organisation that is owned by membership, and the members have one vote each. So, some international recognised principles about cooperation. So it's open membership, democratic control, one member, one vote. Economic participation, so the members are economically engaged in the operation of the business or the organisation. So for the housing co-op, what we were trying to do was take a big local authority estate and give it to a cooperative which was run by the tenants.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So the tenants actually have one vote. They owned the stock collectively. They were involved in new tenant selection. They were involved in where the money was spent in terms of repairs, renewals. So that kind of, it's an enterprise that trades commercially, but gives its profit back to the membership.
It sounds like this is something that we should all be doing in every environment.
I'm very lucky in that I've never worked for a for-profit business or a business owned by external shareholders, let's say. I'm a great believer that business can be great fun and you need to make a reasonable profit, but it's what you do with that profit and how you recycle it.
No, I hear you. But I can't say the same, unfortunately. Yes, look, I think that's amazing. So the model that Care and Share Associates, you pioneered in the UK, have you replicated that model here in Australia? Are the same rules and regulations around the cooperatives?
Yes and no. So just shall I briefly explain about how CASA operated? So we set it up in 2004. And at my exit at 2018, we were delivering 24,000 hours a week of care. So turning over about £17 million, about $30-odd million, had 700 workers and delivered across 9 territories in the north of England. And the way it worked, it was a company that was owned in majority, 85% or so, by what's called an employee ownership trust. So the employees became members automatically of the trust, and the trust distributed profit back to the employees. Every quarter, we would share a third of our profit on a territory basis. So some of our territories did better than others. And then annually, we shared a third of our profit tax-free. You can do this in the UK. If you're owned over 51% by an EOT, you can give profit back to the workers on a tax-free basis. But it's not just about profit share. It's about the workforce understanding how the business operates. So they understand it's about capacity, it's about quality, it's about being able to pick up more work while you recruit more staff. So it's about teaching people about those levers, understanding that they might have to take on more shifts in order to grow the business, but at the same time hold their manager to account for recruiting more staff. So it's that kind of model.
It's funny you mentioned. I'm just going to say it's funny you mentioned dissertations because my dissertation. Well, yours was a PhD, mine was a university one, but mine was about the unions and the management of car industry in the UK, and it was a similar concept around who was at fault for the decline of the UK car industry. And essentially, it was my view came down to in the end it was I thought I was going to be quite anti-union, but it turned out to be quite anti-management in the end because I was like, well, they didn't include anyone, they didn't tell anyone how it worked, they just wanted to keep all the profits for themselves, and that's detrimental. So it's amazing when you get that full circle of clarity around how a business works and what levers are pulled, and as you say, keeping people accountable. then it starts to bring a big, as you say, it becomes an engaged workforce, and therefore the results flow from there.
And research piece after research piece has shown in the NHS, UK and elsewhere that engaged employees deliver better quality care. And one way of really engaging with your workforce is to get everybody to understand how the business operates and
give them a
stake in it.
Give them a say in how it's running and actually value their opinion 100%.
So, and I always start every induction, and I still do inductions here, it's called the 3-column game. So, 3 columns. I go, what's important for the business? And, and the new employees kind of work it out that it's, delivering profit, delivering quality, getting a good reputation, blah, blah, blah. And then I say, okay, what's important for you? What keeps you awake at night? And they want to be valued. They want the tools to be able to do a good job. They want to be well paid. They want security. Yeah. I go, well, actually, in order for you to get that, the business has to do that. So what actions do you need to do to allow both of those things to happen? And the penny suddenly drops that actually, so I need to turn up on time. I need to deliver quality. I need to engage in training. I need to, and once you start building that kind of culture, that kind of mindset, that actually, and this is the important thing about employee-owned businesses, is that they know the money will go back to them and delivering a better service and delivering better quality care. I've never met any support worker who really genuinely wakes up every morning and thinks, I'm going to deliver a really shit day of care today.
On the whole. In general.
We try to root those people out before.
And to be fair, that's generally human nature. Is not we're not wired that way to go. I'm really going to screw this up today.
Yeah, and the thing about support work is you actually do have the opportunity every day to really change somebody's life. And it's rethinking what support is all about, and it's rethinking what your role is in that. I think I think maybe we're going to talk about the NDIS later, but I think one of the challenges of any consumer-led care system where you essentially abrogate responsibility and give a bunch of money to individuals. You sort it out, you buy your own care. We're not really going to worry about compliance or X, Y, Z. And one of the issues about that kind of fragmentation is any kind of workforce strategy can go out the window. But because you're fragmenting it so much.
And you're losing that capacity for control and determination, but at the same time, you're offering a different sort of control and choice and control to the participants. It's a challenge.
Yeah, but there's always a balance, isn't there? Because I'm operating a kind of Buurtzorg inspired provider in Adelaide now called VIVA Mutual. I wanted to call CASA VIVA, by the way, but I got outvoted by the other 3 founders. That's one of the problems with co-ops. But one of the funny things is I never smarted about it. It was a majority decision. So, but I got my own way 18 years later.
Now, tell me. So, fast forward, you've come to Adelaide. You were the Don Dunstan thinker in residence, and I'd love to talk about that. But I'm keen to understand what are you doing now in Australia, and what can we look forward to seeing you achieving?
Well, I'm doing 2 things. Well, 3 things really, which came out slightly from the Don Dunstan residency, but I think they're more kind of rooted in that. So back when I was on that housing estate pretending to be a co-operator, my career was going to be a geography teacher, lecturer, academic. And I never envisaged I would be running a $35 million business employing 700 people. And somewhere along that journey, I never saw and don't see myself as having a disability. And actually didn't really get involved in. I got involved in the care sector because it suited the co-operative business model, not the other way around. And somewhere along that journey, I realized there was probably a relationship between entrepreneurship and disability, around resilience, ingenuity, passion, determination. Sorry, quite a few of the entrepreneurial traits. There's a relationship with enterprise and disability and entrepreneurial traits around stubbornness, ingenuity, passion, ambition, determination, focus, all those kind of things. And so as a kind of passion sideline, I set up an organisation with a friend of mine called Keith Bates, who actually set up the first co-op in the UK entirely owned by people with intellectual disability, called the Clean Sweep. We set up this program called Rapid Enterprise Development, or RED, which is essentially an accessible workshop to teach people with intellectual disability and others how to write a business plan. It's based on games and glitter, and it essentially takes participants for a kind of Shark Tank over 2.5 days or so, where they pitch their ideas against each other, and it's about working out a hobby and what support structure they've got and what the market says and what assets they've got, and it's that kind of matrix. So one guy we helped set up a kind of gardening service in the southwest of England, and so he's a very, very charming, amenable guy, and the nature of his kind of intellectual disability, he's completely passionate about plants and gardening, and very quiet and very unassuming. And we found a niche for him, Patrick. So we essentially established. So the way RED works is we take a person in their circle of support, build up a business plan, and because it's based on this whole idea that if you want to define happiness, it's it's somewhere to live, someone to love, and something to do. And people with lived experience sometimes struggle with the something to do bit. Because most of us find work as something to do, and it kind of signifies certain things about yourself. So
absolutely. And tell me, RED has been something that you created in the UK, and have you brought that to Australia?
We've secured an NDIA grant a couple of years ago to run it in Adelaide, so it's been running ever since. So and then we secured after the first year, we secured another 3 years. So we run. So we have an NDI grant to run the workshops, the business coaching, and the kind of, given COVID, we've had to pivot a bit, and so we've created an online store, and we put a lot more into the online marketing support we provide. But there's some examples here. This is Melissa's robot. Melissa Melissa wanted to be a clothing designer.
Right.
But she draws robots. Then we just put them onto t-shirts.
So,
She sells
wow.
them.
For those of you who can't see, we've got a white t-shirt with a robot on it. So this is one of your clients from Red who wants to basically she wants to be a designer, and she likes drawing robots. That's amazing.
And she sells them at markets and from her website, and she sells them for $25 a go, and she makes about $10 a go. And she said to her support coordinator the other day, "Tell me about your profit and loss."
Brilliant.
Which I thought was very, very funny.
And Guy, I remember when I first met you, I remember learning about Red or talking to you about Red and thinking that's something that I'm sort of quite envious about, because being in that sort of startup space is something that I think it would be really exciting and really interesting. And one of my associates who works for Ozcare Support in the Adelaide market is also involved. We've been discussing utilizing her skill set in the micro business sense. So I know this is not a conversation for now, but I think there's some liaisons that we need to do between Red and Ozcare Support that's going to accelerate that whole marketplace. And we'd love to try and work out what Red is doing and how we can take that to another market, whether it's in Sydney or where else. I don't know whether you're amenable to partnerships like that, but we'll take that offline. But
very much. I'm a cooperator.
Yeah, that's it. Well, you have to be if you're in the co-op space. Surely you have to be and so look, you've obviously, that's a pretty fabulous achievement. One of the things that we would be keen to understand, because people that listen to the podcast are interested, I guess, in entrepreneurship and how businesses in the NDIS work. What are your top 3 tips, I guess, to help businesses grow and meet the needs of the sector in the disability space?
I think the first thing you need is ambition. I think you need to think quite big. I've always thought big. I've always wanted to, not just set up a care co-op, but have the biggest one in the UK. So I think it's that kind of ambition to. And it doesn't have to be about scale. It's about being the most innovative or most different, or you need something unique about yourself, which actually people can grab onto. And secondly, you need the passion. You really need to be passionate about what you do. Is about in this sector. The decisions you make and the things to do really impact on other people's lives every day. You need to take that very seriously. And thirdly, you need to have fun. I'm a great believer in having fun. If you don't have fun, I would go and work for somebody else. Not take the risk and the long hours and this, that, and the other, because if you're running your own business isn't, whether it be a co-op or any other kind, it isn't a walk in the park. It's great fun and very rewarding, but it's also very challenging and very consuming.
Yeah, I think that's great. Yeah, big ambitions, passion, and have fun. Yeah, no, I like that.
And if I could stick a fourth in,
of course,
you need to have really good systems as well. Good CRM. So do a really boring one as well. I don't know how people used to run kind of care businesses without decent rostering software and CRMs. I just don't understand how it can be done. You probably have to have an army of people to do it.
Yeah, well, one of those. You remember those accounting books with the ledger spreadsheets and all that before Excel and accounting packages? Yeah, I think it's something like that. I'm going to just flip it around, and this wasn't on the list of questions I sent you, but I'm really keen to understand. I want to talk to you about the Don Dunstan, what that was for you, but I also want to talk to you about the future of the NDIS and what your views are on scheme and the sustainability of it and where it's going. So I don't know which you'd like to unpick first, whether you want to start with the Don Dunstan
I'll
and what
start with the Don Dunstan one, which is it was very fortuitous. So I accidentally ran into my current wife, or my I shouldn't say current wife, should I?
Say current wife sounds like it's a temporary measure.
I've been married 3 times, so never again. So Melinda and I met in 2013, and I was just recently divorced, and I was kind of tracking down some friends. I was living in the UK, and a friend of mine had immigrated to Adelaide with her husband, had a couple of kids, and I tracked her down on Facebook, and I'd never used Facebook before, so I didn't know really how it worked. So I thought I was having a conversation with Jackie, but actually all her friends could see it. And suddenly her friend Melinda popped into the conversation saying how silly I was having 4 kids and 2 ex-wives. So we got talking, and I just by chance had a speaking job in New Zealand later that year. So I came via Adelaide. And by that time we met. And by that time we've grown quite close online. So we called off, and the rest is history. And a really funny story about disability, because I don't see myself as disabled. So I'd never really mentioned it on our Skype talks. And it was so long ago, I actually didn't have a camera.
Right.
And
it's not that long ago.
We've been talking.
14.
We've been talking for 2 or 3 months, and being a man, I put off and put off and put off, the week was coming when I was going to be arriving in Adelaide for the first time. We were going to meet for the first time, and I wasn't sure whether she knew I had a lived experience of disability or not.
Right.
And I said to my sister-in-law, do you think I should tell her? Or do you think I should just turn up and go, ta-da? Anyway, I did tell her. And it was one of the most difficult things I've ever done, actually. I think it's describing over an email or by phone what lived experience disability means to me, because there's no, it's like sea and salt, they're so intertwined in a way. So that was it. Anyway, so that relationship started, and I'm fortunate enough because I'm well known for CASA and in the co-op sector. And I'd done some work for the School of Social Entrepreneurs, who had an office in Sydney as well. So I managed to find the odd kind of consultancy or speaking events to essentially fund my flights for a few years.
Perfect.
And things gathered. And then I got this email from the Don Dunstan Foundation about being thinker in residence in Adelaide. And I rang up Melinda and said, is this spam?
And for those of us who don't know, what is the Don Dunstan Foundation?
Well, Don Dunstan was the premier of South Australia, very innovative, forward-thinking, liberal in terms of wanting to promote homosexuality, women's rights, and a whole range of other things, way before any of the other states did. And a an amazing premier. And a foundation was established, which was about bringing creative thinkers from around the world to try and seed new ideas. So there's been a whole program of residencies, and I was asked to be the thinker in residence in 2018 to try and talk about the role of cooperatives and reforming the health and care sector in some way.
Yeah. Wow.
So, it was a fairly short. Typically, thinking resentences are about 3 or 4 weeks length, and they end up with a narration. Mine was slightly different because the previous thinker had some family issues. So I think I had to do 2 loads. That suited me fine.
Yeah, right.
You get worked to an interview life. It was, an amazing experience. I literally at one day I had a presentation to the cabinet. That's it. I had a breakfast meeting at 6:30. A presentation to the cabinet after that. 2 or 3 workshops, masterclass, and then an interview with Sky News.
Well, so just a normal walk in the park.
But it was just that kind of constant but great fun.
And so you've done your Don Dunstan Foundation, you've published your reports. I'd be keen to get your take on the NDIS, where we sit now and where the scheme is going, because obviously
I think that there's, I think as I was saying at the top of the conversation, one of the problems I've always had with, I think consumer-led health and care systems sound great in practice, because they give power, ownership, and control to the individuals to make their own decisions and take control of their own care. And if you accept the social model of disability, the idea that you control your support actually does address some of the issues of disability. However, we know because of the low level of NDIS utilisation in poor communities, you've got a kind of inverse care law where you've created a system where middle-class families are much better at navigating it than people who are less educated. And that brings me right back to my PhD, which was essentially about working out why youth employment schemes work better in middle-class areas. And more than that, I went to a mainstream school from the age of 5. I was born in 1965, where everybody with cerebral palsy got put in a special school. There's no integration at all. And the reason I went to a normal school is my mother just took me to the local school on day one and said, educate my child.
Well, I think we can all applaud your mother for that and also thank her for that. And it's a neat dovetail actually back to, as you say, where you started with your surreptitiously getting employed in the community to work out why as you say, it was working for middle class communities and not for lower class communities.
But I think the NDIS as an ambition and as a scheme and the 22 billion and it has to be applauded. And when the NDIS works well, it can transform people's lives. What people don't realise is articulating choice and control is sometimes very difficult. And if you don't put the right amount of brokerage in, the right amount of advocacy into the system, then it's very difficult to do.
Well, I think it was the interview I did with Sam Payer from The Growing Space earlier on in this podcast. And she mentioned that there was supposed to be a duopoly around the NDIS, but also the community information linkages and capacity building in the community. And that had not happened. And as a result of that not happening, but the stripping away of the state by state, I guess fundamental supports, there's actually there is that dichotomy at the moment, which exists, where, as you mentioned, if you know how to navigate the system, you're okay. But if you don't, you're actually worse off now than you were previously, which is a situation which none of us want. What is the solution to that, though? Beyond if we
one of the projects that came out of the Thinkers report I did was to create a joint venture cooperative between consumers on the one hand, who can learn from each other, and micro providers on the other. And then if you can work out who wants to buy what, but they can't buy it, it can map market intelligence, it can see where the demand is, it can aggregate brokerage. I think that can be a solution. And actually, we're developing a hybrid version of that at the moment called Strong and Capable. strongandcapable.com.au, which the DSS gave a grant of Carers SA to Auspice, and I'm just the co-op advisor on that. The idea is you create a cooperative owned by people with lived experience and NDI's plan. And there's a mentoring line in the price guide. I think it's $40 an hour. And the idea is that the more experienced NDIS participants who have successfully navigated the NDIS mentor new participants.
I've never heard of that line item, but it's interesting to see. And wow, Strong and Capable. I mean, I'd love to unpick this with you in the future. I think we're coming to the end of our podcast today. It's been an amazing time talking to you, Guy. I always enjoy your company. I will be down in Adelaide again soon, and I will look you up. But I wanted to say thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your insight. Thank you so much for sharing, Dr. Guy Turnbull.
Thank you, Max. Bye-bye.
Appreciate it. Bye-bye. I hope you've enjoyed listening to Rock Solid People. For more interviews, stay tuned.